The change in the contours here shows a steeper slope along this portion of the drive-through road, and that's exactly what we'd expect to see because we just flattened this part out, which would in turn make this part steeper. We've also flattened out the area in front of the building, which is going to make this area steeper as well. So everything happened exactly as we wanted. We just updated probably several dozen curb elevations around the building, and we did it fairly quickly because we used the rough or the intermediate grading model to drive the changes of the fine grading model. The next thing we want to address is we've basically revised our model to make this area a little flatter and this area a little steeper to address this concern about elevations in front of the drive-through. Well, that works great for the drive-through itself, but we really don't want that effect out here in the parking lot, because what we've done is done the exact same thing to the parking lot. It's pretty flat here, and then it starts to drop down more steeply to follow, what we've done with the island curb elevations. So what we'd like to do is kind of straighten this back out so that our parking lot grading is a nice, smooth, constant grade the whole way from north to south. So we're just going to use our set grade slope between points command once again, and I'll select the feature line here for the island, and we're simply going to say from this point and whatever elevation it is, I'm just accepting the default elevation. Actually, I'm doing the wrong side. Apologize for that. Let's try that again. We're going to start at the top. And we're going to go from this point at its elevation down to this point at whatever elevation it is, and instead of dropping steeply somewhere in the middle, we want it to just do a constant grade of what turns out to be 1.46%. And then we'll do the same thing for the top of curb feature line. Pan up here to the top end, pick that point. Again, I want to make sure that my elevations are traveling in the right direction, and they are. And then we'll pick this point, constant grade of 1.46. So basically what we've just done, if you can picture what's going on, is we've straightened out this curb line. Currently, or before we did the command, it got to about here and then made a steep drop down to the bottom. We'd like to straighten it out so that the grading in this part of the parking lot is a nice constant grade, which apparently is about 1.46%. So let's go ahead and rebuild the fine grading surface and actually see that change reflected in the contours. And there you can see that nice constant grade. So in the parking lot area, we've got a nice constant grade of 1.46 along the curb. The drive-through, we're pretty much perfectly flat until about right here, and then we slope steeply down to the end of the driveway access. So that means right about in this location, this part of the curb is quite a bit higher than this part, and you can see that actually reflected in the contours within the island itself. But the island is a great place to make up that discrepancy in grading, because we're going to landscape that and put mulch or landscaping materials or something in there, and it's okay for that area to be a little steeper than the parking lot. Now to take care of a couple of other fine grading issues. One is, if you think about the curb elevations here and then along the building and then down to here, we've got somewhat of a discrepancy. The entire set of feature lines, including the purple curb feature lines and the building feature line, were all set to that common surface called intermediate grading. And then we took the face of curb feature lines and dropped them down half a foot. So if you think about it, this feature line is down half a foot, and right from there to the corner of the building, we're going from a situation where we dropped half a foot to a situation where we didn't. So we've got a little bit of a of a grading discrepancy between the curb and the building. Now luckily feature lines are so easy to use, I can fix that very quickly just by simply grabbing this grip. I'm going to take the grip from this feature line and just snap it right to the end point of this feature line. And now what we've done is projected bottom of curb elevations right across from this island to this curb, and we've got the correct amount or the correct elevations right across the face of the building. Okay, so that applies the drop that we need to properly model the surface. Another situation we have is that we've got a little low point right here that we want to take care of. We've got a little area where water's going to pond, and we don't want that. And we've got a little area right here. Now, looking at the bigger picture, this entire portion of the drive-through is pretty much flat. So we know just from the way that we've designed it that water is going to lay in this area. So to take care of that, we need to create a low point somewhere so that drainage will travel to that low point. We can then receive it into an inlet and convey it underground to another location. So we're also going to be creating a low point about midway down the flat portion of the drive-through. So those are the things we're going to be taking care of. So let's take care of this guy first. Easy solution, we'll just use set grade slope between points. I'm going to pick this feature line. I'm going to pick this point here, accept its elevation. I'm going to pick this point here, and it's saying it's a grade of about 0.04%, and that's fine, we'll just accept that. And that should, if we rebuild the fine grading surface, get rid of the little low point right here. We should see this little contour disappear. And there it goes. So we no longer have a low point or a catch point at that location. We've smoothed that right out. The next thing we'll do is create a low point about midway along this feature line, and we're actually going to let Civil 3D calculate the location and elevation of this low point for us. And we're going to use a command that's actually going to find a higher low point for us. And that command is right here, insert high-low elevation point. So the way this will work is we'll pick this feature line, and we'll say the start point is just beyond the drive-through window. The end point we'll say is up here. Grade ahead will be -1. Grade back will be -1. And it's going to automatically calculate for us a low point that is sloping at 1% away from each one of the points that we selected to a point in between that's going to generate that low point for us. And as soon as it's finished performing the calculation, we'll be able to rebuild the fine grading surface and see the change take place. So now that it's finished, you can see the green elevation point that's been created at that location. Hit enter to finish the command, and now we can go and rebuild fine grading, and we should see that change reflected in the contours. And now you can see we've got a contour here that's clearly indicating a low point in about this location right here. So that takes care of elevations along the west side of the building, including the drive-through and the parking area. Now we're going to look at the north side of the building. The effect that we want here is a ramping effect of the pavement from out in this area up to the sidewalk. So basically there is no curb reveal around where the sidewalk line is here, and we want the pavement to slope up to the sidewalk so that it's a nice smooth walk right up onto the sidewalk. It eliminates the need for accessible ramps and that sort of thing, and just creates a nice entrance effect for the client's customers. If you think about how we built the curb geometry in 3D, we've got a top of curb and bottom of curb feature line that are basically a half a foot apart in the vertical dimension. So an easy way to fix this would just be to simply, let's take this bottom of curb and raise it up to the same elevation as the top of curb, which would create a ramping effect from this point up to this point. And the way we'll do that is another feature line command, which is set elevation by reference. And that's this one right here.